I've already received a handful of messages from you guys surrounding what's going on in Iran, and Lord knows we're going to continue covering this. I feel like I always have to give this disclaimer when there's a big story kind of sucking all the oxygen out of the room, rightfully so, of course. Um, this isn't going to become the Iran show. I like to try and vary what it is that we talk about on a daily basis here, although very clearly the situation in Iran and now apparently Ecuador, I have more thoughts on that later, is expanding every single day. Things seem to be trending in the opposite of the right direction. And we will be continuing to follow developments as those take place. And I promise I will get all of your text messages in here. But I at least want to start very briefly, possibly a little bit of Schadenfreude. I can't help myself, though, when it happens. So, in the world of Wisconsin and Wisconsin media, if you guys haven't been made aware, there's a very prominent right wing talk show host that after the conflict took place, because there's two very different types of Republicans right now in a post we're about to start World War III America. There are the people that actually voted against Kamala Harris because they were anti-war and didn't want to see those wars expand. And then there's the Republican that just tried and find an excuse other than Mexicans and trans people to say why they're voting Republican, when in reality, it's Mexicans and trans people and all the other stuff that Democrats do, they're absolutely fine with. And one of those hosts is in Milwaukee and decided to make a joke because he decided to be one of those media people that was going to kick into gear and defend the war with Iran, despite the fact that we were warned that voting for Kamala Harris would start a war with Iran, something that Republicans said that they were against. And in his post after the Ayatollah had been eliminated, he said, now we need to get rid of the supreme leader of Minnesota, meaning Tim Walz. We will be greeted as liberators. Now, this host comes from the same radio station who used to employ Jay Weber. For those of you listening not in Wisconsin, that is the individual who referred to Tim Walz's autistic son as a blubbering bitch boy and managed to maintain his job despite saying something so despicable about a member of the special needs community. You fast forward 2 months, and we had a weather person, Sam Kuffel, who had the audacity to call out an obvious Nazi salute coming out from the world's wealthiest man. And as a result, those two individuals, the one who makes fun of autistic children and the one who calls for the assassination of governors, proceeded to get that young woman fired from her job as a meteorologist for condemning an obvious Nazi salute. Now, when Jay Weber called out or made fun of autistic children, I went off. And for those of you that are newer to the program, I worked with special needs kids for the better part of 4 years. Even if I didn't, I'm just not a jackass. But I obviously have a soft spot in my heart for that community and try and assist whenever I can. And when I see people getting out of pocket in that world, I absolutely am quick to call it out. But at no point did I ever advocate for cancel culture because I don't believe in people getting fired from their positions. I didn't believe it should be happening during the whole Charlie Kirk saga. Didn't believe it should have happened after Jay made fun of autistic children. Didn't think it should have happened after Sam condemned a Nazi salute, because I think people should be allowed to make their own decision, much like you guys listening to me right now. There's a handful of MAGAs that absolutely have decided they're never going to turn this show on again, because I do this stupid thing where I say the stuff the president does and says, and they'd rather be told little white lies their entire life. And that's fine. Those of you that have a capacity to actually deal with something you might not agree with, you come back. In the liberal audience and Democrat audience that listens to me, you guys took a browbeating for 2.5 years, and yet here we are, and now all of a sudden this show makes a lot more sense to you. I think the people should be able to determine who maintains employment and who doesn't. It shouldn't be a complaint fest. It shouldn't be a cancel culture war. I'm against that. And I'm not going to call for this to happen for this individual either. Dan O'Donnell's his name in Milwaukee. I refer to him as Dancel Culture because longtime listeners know he tried to get me fired 9 months ago because I highlighted that he refused to talk about the Epstein list. He has taken a personal vendetta with me, and a lot of people are dogpiling this individual. And I'll admit, he blocked me, so I can no longer talk to him anymore. He blocked me yesterday. But He posted an apology. He was taken off the air yesterday. He said, I want to take a moment to offer my sincerest apologies for a post I made about Minnesota's governor that, quite frankly, I am deeply ashamed of. It was irresponsible and completely inappropriate, and I have since taken it down. It served only to deepen divisions at a time when unity and basic human decency are most needed. My primary responsibility as a broadcaster, a father, and a person is to always comport myself professionally, appropriately, and compassionately, and I failed to do that. Again, I am truly, deeply, unequivocally sorry. Dancel culture. Now, that's a really nice apology that was written by ChatGPT there. I think it deserves a lot of credit for advancing so far in the world of AI. Um, I am not calling for this individual to lose his job. He has been taking quite a bit of heat, and I refuse to use my platform to do it. I would never use my platform to suggest people call their newsroom at 877-727-1130 and let them know exactly how you feel about calls to violence against a sitting governor of the United States at a time when in that state, not even a year ago, we had elected officials murdered by crazy people. I would never advocate that you call 877-727-1130 and very politely lay out there for the people of News Talk 1130 in Milwaukee, no, that's not the type of behavior that we expect out of the people of Wisconsin. I would never advocate for somebody to do that to another individual in my industry, even the people that tried to do that to me less than a year ago for highlighting that Republicans refused to talk about the Epstein list once we knew Donald Trump was on it. I would never ask for that to happen. But what I would like to say is, waka waka MAGA, what goes around comes around, and I hope you're enjoying every second of this. Now, on to the news of the day here. The reason why this individual is taking heat right now is because there are so many right wingers trying to cover for this war in Iran. And before anybody even bothers trying to uniparty me, first of all, I am the king of the uniparty, so don't even try and start this conversation with me. But just for some perspective, because we sometimes forget about what life was like just 18 short months ago, here's what David Sachs, known billionaire and pro-Trump right-winger who said it was important to vote for the peace president, here's how he was talking just before the election in 2024. The White House is ready to greenlight use of American missiles to strike targets deep inside Russia. The Russians have many ways to retaliate. Why are we taking this risk? Ukraine is neither a treaty ally nor a vital interest. Biden himself once warned this could cause WW3. If the Uniparty really cared about national security threats, they would seal the border and stop tempting World War III with the Russians. Instead, they're creating sweeping powers to censor domestic websites and apps. Europeans are starting to wake up to what a disaster their Ukraine policy has been, but they can only imagine one answer: escalation. They would rather drag us into World War III than admit the bankruptcy of their policy. The October surprise is WW3. Meanwhile, Biden looks like a piece of flotsam, I don't know, that washed up at Rehoboth Beach, and Kamala Harris is too scared to do a press conference. Get these jokers out of there. The election is over. January 20 can't come soon enough. I remember the Cold War ending over 3 decades ago. Neocons couldn't let the old hatreds die. They continued to treat Russia like an enemy. Then TDS created Russiagate and liberals bought in, so now now that we're in an easily avoidable proxy war with Russia with WW3. So stupid. If you want WW3, vote Biden in November. Now, you may notice that he has been suspiciously quiet since we've been barreling towards World War III in the name of a proxy war that we had no business getting involved in to begin with. And I don't think that that's an inflammatory statement to make sitting here in 2026. But sure enough, those are the type of people that are remaining quiet. We're learning about an attack in Ecuador, or fighting starting to take place in Ecuador. Something drugs, something fentanyl, maybe something trans. We have no idea. We're learning more and more as time goes on. Here's something that you're not going to get out of CBS Newsmax or anybody else that's reporting on this right now. Ecuador has banned oil drilling to protect 700,000 hectares of rainforest and indigenous people. 700,000. And for the record, I had to look it up. That is Wait, where'd it go? That is the size of 2.47 acres. So multiply 700,000 times 2.47, and that's how many acres of rainforest and indigenous lands are being protected in Ecuador right now from oil and gas drilling companies. Venezuela was taken out because of the access to oil. Iran is being taken out due to the access to oil, as well as, and we're going to be talking about that more from a geographical perspective in the next segment, but as well as their access to 10% of the world's lithium. All of this is adding up, and the people who said that they were voting for Republicans in the name of avoiding World War III are fairly quiet as to the obvious barreling nature towards World War III that we find ourselves in right now. And I'm not Pollyannish about it. For those of you, I'm going to explain the chart in a second, but I'm also the chart is available on my socials, and I am also throwing it up on the YouTube stream that I have up right now for the program. Regardless of president since 2001, I'm actually just going to run down some of these here for you guys because it goes to show you that this is not uniquely Trumpian, but the fact of the matter remains that Trump is doing this more prevalently, and until we vote against a uniparty, it's not going to stop. For sake of argument, since 2001, from 2001 until 2022, we bombed Afghanistan every single year. From 2001 until 2011, we bombed Iraq every year. Then we started doing it again from 2014 until 2021, and then again in 23, 24, and 25. We bombed Pakistan every single year between 2004 and 2018. We bombed Somalia, which, like, wait until you hear this. 2007, 2008, then we took 2 years off, and we have bombed them every year, including this year from 2011 and on. We have bombed Yemen every year between 2009 and 2020, as well as 23, 4, and 5. We have bombed Libya in 2011, 12, 16, 17, 18, and 19. We bombed Syria from 2014 until today. And then since Trump's presidency, we have bombed Venezuela both years, Nigeria 1 year, and Iran both years. And we have the audacity to label the people that we're bombing as terrorists. And like with the Somalia thing, I'm going to admit this in front of Northeast Wisconsin on the app and on YouTube in general. I had no idea what kind of a menace that we were causing in Somalia. And the fact that Republicans have the audacity to complain that Somalis come over here and get welfare money from the American public, you should be embarrassed for complaining about that. Again, it's not solely on you. Other than 2 years during the Obama years, we have bombed them every single year since 2007. Democrats and Republicans alike have caused the crap hole that is Somalia right now, but pretending that we, for whatever reason, don't owe them anything. This is the cyclical nature of the military-industrial complex. We create habitats that are not inhabitable by the people that have been living there. They eventually make their way to one of the only countries that is accepting immigrants. And then when they get here, they get demonized by the right because they know there's a contingency that'll get mad that the brown skins are coming. And then they also get utilized as cheap labor in order to keep wages down for everybody else that isn't a bigot. So you see the cyclical nature of this. You see how active we've been in bombing, regardless of if Democrats or Republicans are in office. But the fact of the matter is, 6 of the years that I have been talking about since 2001 are Donald Trump years. And anyone trying to pretend that he is the peace president or isn't just as guilty of engaging in these kind of actions as every president that came before him, and in all likelihood, unless we step up and say and do the right things, the presidents that will come after him, you don't have a leg to stand on right now. It's disgusting what I'm looking at here in this chart. I'm going to remove it off of the feed here now, but that's a disgusting chart to look at. And it's embarrassing that we bomb so many countries that somebody that studies this stuff pretty regularly is unaware of just how much we're bombing people. And now we're talking about starting a conflict with Ecuador for some made-up reason, but the fact is it's because they don't want to ruin their ecosystem in the name of making Exxon a couple more bucks. Because Donald Trump knows that his war of choice is going to bring up gas prices. You know, the last time oil prices rose as much as they have the last 2 days, it was 2005. What was going on in 2005? Oh, right. The last time a Republican president got us into a war of choice in the Middle East and couldn't back up the lies that he was getting us into that war with. It's funny how often this cycle continues to happen, and yet they're coming to trans our kids somehow is more of a rallying call for so many of you listening to me right now than maybe we should stop the never-ending war. And there is an element of religion to this that I'll be honest, I'm hesitant to bring up, but I'm going to because I'm not going to avoid it. That if you haven't seen the reporting, we'll jump into that as well as a geographic history lesson here on the other side of the break. Before we do that, Kathleen says, where is it? How can the U.S. go into this war so incredibly unprepared, telling citizens who are stranded in Dubai in the Middle East to take commercial flights out of harm's way when there are none, expecting Spain, etc., to just let us launch attacks from their country without ever consulting them beforehand? Is everyone amateur hour status in this? It's frightening. You know what's funny, Kathleen? I've been having this thought for a while because some of you guys listening to me were significantly into adulthood when 9/11 happened. And I'm asking this question to the audience, and I welcome any opinions on this. Was the wartime propaganda better in 2001, or am I just older and paying more attention? Because I'll admit, I grew up in a pretty right-wing neck of Pittsburgh. I was unaware of that when I was growing up. I was made aware of it when I started screening calls at the radio station I worked at in Pittsburgh. And they would say, yeah, I'm calling from this place. I'm like, oh, I went to high school there. And they'd proceed, let me tell you what's wrong with you people, before I was going to put them on the air with a black person. And I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm not from the same place you are, apparently. It's not the way I was raised. But it was a fairly right-wing area. And I remember when France was like, yo, this WMD stuff seems like it's a bunch of BS, and maybe we shouldn't be throwing ourselves into this war. And we all collectively just started hating France. Remember, it was freedom fries. We just stopped calling anything French. We viewed them as babies. We questioned why they wouldn't be a true ally. Meanwhile, 20 years after the fact, we're like, God, why couldn't we have been more like France? So, like, now you see the same type of people trying to vilify Spain and other European countries for not assisting us in this. And it's like, yeah, of course they're not assisting us in this. Why would you want to be a part of this? And like, is this just because I'm older and paying more attention, or is the propaganda just that much worse? Because I know we were buying into it. Is it because there was an actual attack on American soil and maybe we weren't thinking as clearly then, whereas now this was absolutely just a war of Donald Trump's choosing that's going to raise our oil prices? Like, inevitably, someone is going to text me about Joe Biden's oil prices. And the difference being, of course, that Joe Biden inherited a once-in-a-generation, possibly once-in-a-century pandemic, and Donald Trump chose to join Israel and make a decision inflating our prices in the middle of an affordability crisis. And don't you worry, I will be doing my due diligence to see if prices actually need to go as high as they are, or if oil companies are using an opportunity to rake in excess profits. I promise you this is going to be the show for that information. But just like during COVID, I was never naive enough to think that prices shouldn't go up. I just maintained that profits shouldn't go up either. And we'll see what happens with the oil and gas companies. I see KG saying the propaganda was on the foundation of an actual terrorist attack. Right, no, exactly. Like, that's kind of, I realized there's an actual attack in America, so it was a little bit different. But I don't know. I don't know. It feels so heavy-handed. I played audio for you guys. Hold on, wait. I don't have it up and ready to go right now. But I played audio for you guys yesterday about Marco Rubio saying, yeah, we got into this because Israel was going to do it. I'm honestly, I'm just stalling. I'm going to bring this audio up here. But he said, yeah, they were an imminent threat. Here we go. I'll just let you hear it right from the horse's mouth.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen, and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
So in no uncertain terms, he said Israel was going to attack, so we had to join in order to follow along with them there. And then yesterday, after my show wrapped up, he's like, no, I never said that. They're just straight up making crap up. They're just making crap up about what they said. And then MAGA gets mad when you say, hey, here's the thing they said. Why are you doing this? Are you secretly Antifa? Like, no, I'm just quite literally saying the things the president and his administration are doing and saying. And unfortunately, just like I used to do for Anthony Blinken under Joe Biden when they were lying to us about the genocide in Gaza. Brian out in Fremont says 3/4 of Main Street media should be writing apology letters, starting with most of the programs. I'm not going to pick. They're not even the B team, Brian. I'm not going to dunk on that radio station. That's like the G team. It's like the G League of radio that you're picking on right now. But it's not lost on me that that we're spiraling towards this with lies coming from the right, and quite frankly, a milquetoast response coming from the left in terms of condemnation of it. I was talking with Jonathan Krause about this off the air. We had a caller yesterday, not a frequent caller, but a caller, who said he was tired of the Dan Crenshaw style politics, the war hawk, the chicken hawk style politics. Chicken hawk doesn't necessarily apply to Crenshaw. He obviously served and knows the perils of it, but has no gripes about sending the young men and women of today off to go fight wars in the name of oligarchs, which may as well be a slap in the face to anybody that does or has served. But look at the outcomes from yesterday. Dan Crenshaw lost to a no-name. I don't remember the guy's name. I don't have it in front of me. Jasmine Crockett, which this might catch you off guard, was the warmonger of the two candidates. She lost. Graham Plattner is outperforming Janet Mills and incumbent Susan Collin, both warmongers. Kamala Harris lost on the idea, and again, it doesn't help that you march Liz Cheney around, but Kamala Harris lost because she was perceived as a warmonger. It just so happens that Republicans have reverted back to their early 2000s stature of let's blow up the entire Middle East. Who needs it anyway? The warmonger element of politics is losing. It's just a matter of who can actually convince the voters that they're not, even when they are, or more importantly, why don't we just actually elect people that aren't in favor of doing these kind of things? That feels like a good step in the right direction. Got a text from a number here. I don't have a name on it. Tina, I wish Kennedy would have stayed in the running. I believe he would have been our president. He whistle blew on a bunch of stuff from both sides. There was a time when I might have bought that, Tina, but the dude's kind of a hack. The fact that he, as recently as January, was saying glyphosate causes cancer, and now he's going on the record saying that there really isn't any cause to believe that now that the Trump administration pushed it through. I think he's no better than the rest of them. I just think he likes to talk about things that certain people connect with. Larry out in North Carolina says Saudi Arabia trades their oil in dollars, and they also have a whole mess of treasury notes. The price of oil is attached to the dollar. And Jim says gas prices, the fact that gas prices are skyrocketing even before any of the more expensive oil is loaded on a tanker or pumped from the ground, shows that we are being gouged. Profiteering should be punishable. Well, now that's just communism, Jim. That's what I was told by the entire Republican Party when there was an election in 2024, is that holding price gougers to account is communism. So I'm sure MAGA will remain consistent in their thinking process now that there's a Republican president and we're going to get gouged. I'm sure that's what will ultimately end up happening. With that, I do want to get into the geography of it all. The Strait of Hormuz is being talked about in most mainstream media. I looked up how that works. I'm growing very familiar with geography around the world. If there's one thing, there's a lot of things America sucks at from an education perspective, but geography is definitely one of them. Most of what I know in terms of international geography has been taught to me after my 20s. I've been looking into the Strait of Hormuz here and how it relies, or how it relates rather, to the rest of that region as well as the world in terms of shipping access and what we can expect out of the economy as Iran threatens to shut down passage and Trump threatens to use American lives in order to make sure that it stays open. If you don't know much about this, stay tuned. It's going to be a hell of a history and geographical lesson for a lot of you guys. I spent quite a bit of time on this, so I hope you guys are ready for it. It's on the other side of the break. Outside the Box, WHBY, and Political Voices Network. You know, I hate cancel culture, but this whole thing surrounding the Dan O'Donnell show couldn't be happening to a nicer guy. I'm thrilled that this is happening right now. I can't help myself. Again, if you didn't hear the first part of the show, he called for the assassination of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. I'm very anti-cancel culture, and I most certainly discourage anybody from calling 877-727-1130 and letting the people know at News Talk AM 1130 in Milwaukee that they don't appreciate threats of violence in such a politically charged time. I would hate for somebody to be a victim of cancel culture that got a young woman fired for condemning a Nazi salute. It's just, where's fairness for straight white jerks, in their like mid 50s or however old that nasal voice jerk is. I'm not a vindictive guy, but if you do cross me, as I was listed in the Minocqua Brewing Times, I was described as a millennial with a long memory and a short fuse. And I think I found a tagline for this show because I don't think I have a short fuse. I think I'm a pretty pleasant guy, but as soon as you cross me, then there's something entirely different going on. And that guy decided to play the cancel culture game. And thankfully, I work for an organization that has my back. And we'll see if iHeartRadio has the back of someone calling for violence the same way Woodward had the back of somebody saying maybe right-wing media should talk about the fact that Donald Trump is mentioned 38,000 times in the Epstein list. And if you didn't have your head so far up Trump's, you might have a capacity to do something like that. We'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, that's News Talk 1130 down in Milwaukee. So now on to geography here. As we've been highlighting, there's been a lot of countries that have been bombed by America. It's the reason why we can't have free healthcare or free college or affordable housing or affordable childcare or any of these other things that, by the way, the terrorist theocratic country of Iran has universal healthcare and free college. We should be so lucky to be ruled by a theocrat like that. The reason why is because we have been bombing the crap out of that region and plenty of other regions since the stats that I gave you are since I'm 12 years old. But spoiler warning, the military industrial complex has been operating a lot longer than that. Fun fact, right now, the polling data on Donald Trump's start to World War III is at 27%. In the final year of Vietnam, it was 29% favorable. I was not alive for Vietnam, but I've read enough about it to know how the sentiments changed over the years while that fighting was going on. And as I oftentimes state, much like how the young leftist protesters of the Vietnam War were proven right, and the war in Iraq were proven right, and Occupy Wall Street were proven right, and the genocide in Gaza were proven right. Maybe we can just skip to the part where we believe the left-leaning young people and their thoughts about what's going on now rather than waiting for 10 years and acting like nobody understood what was going on. Maybe we could just skip to that part now. I don't know. I'm not telling you guys how to live your lives, but I think that would be a good way to circumvent a lot of the noise that we're dealing with here. I'm going to give you guys a rundown here. I see I have a call coming through. We'll do that first. But on the other side of that call, I want to explain to you guys where the Strait of Hormuz is, the countries that border it, and then more importantly, ranking of which countries are going to be most impacted. Some are allies, some are enemies, some are neutral, But there's one theme that stands through all of this. All of our prices are going to be going up, and it's going to be as a direct result of only Donald Trump and the Republican Party. There is no but the Dems on this story. It is because Donald Trump chose to embroil us in a war of choice, and the Republican Party doesn't have the guts to stand up against him. I'm going to do that geography lesson for you in a second, but first, caller. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Good morning, Ben. Cynthia in Florida.
Hi, what's up, Cynthia?
I woke up. As soon as I opened my eyes, I was shaking, literally shaking, and I haven't stopped. But I have to tell you something funny. My friends tell me I might be smiling, but they can look and see fire in my eyes and know everything's getting ready to pop off. And I've told people, somebody makes me mad, everybody's going to be mad.
I feel that. I get that.
But I sent you a long text about Somalia. And that's why I recommended the book I did a few days ago, Killing Hope by William Bloom. You know, Somalia was about oil, as usual. And regarding what's happening in the Middle East, food is going to be threatened because fertilizers are not going to be shipped. So there are people who are going to starve because of this. I was so... Some cleric, or whoever the heck he is in the United States, is telling soldiers they are fighting in the Battle of Armageddon.
Yeah.
And then you have nuts like Ben Cominos, who is celebrating Purim, which is when the Jews were saved by attacking Persia. I mean, in Persia.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
oh, yeah.
Come on now.
I know. It's and Cynthia, I appreciate the call. I don't want to open that can of worms just yet. I am going to get into it. But like what Cynthia's describing right now is 200 complaints going to a watchdog group across 30 military bases saying that this is a war of end days. And for those of you, I've kind of touched on this a couple of times. And, you know, I grew up with a family that told me you never talk about money, politics, or religion, and you'll never ruffle feathers. And I really don't have any thoughts about talking about religion, but I believe that they tell you not to talk about politics so that people don't understand why other people feel the way that they do, and they don't want you talking about money because they don't want you realizing just how much your boss is fleecing you. So I can't stress enough, talk politics and money whenever you get the opportunity to do so. But I've always never touched that third rail of religion because far be it for me, I don't know what happens when you die. Nobody does. So like whatever people want to believe is fine with me. But when it crosses the line is when other people have to be harmed for your religion to be enacted or for you to believe in whatever is happening. As soon as your religion requires me or anyone in this world to be hurt, you're bad at religion and I don't respect your views anymore. If you practice Islam and believe that the people who did 9/11 are currently surrounded by 72 virgins and are being treated like kings in whatever afterlife you have, your religion is not real and it's designed to spread hate. Conversely, if you are a Christian Zionist, and if you don't know what a Christian Zionist is, it is somebody that believes that a massive war needs to break out between the Middle East and the Jews of Israel. And as a result of that happening, the rapture will happen or Jesus will return to earth. If that is your belief, you are more than entitled to that belief. You are not entitled to be in charge of anything militarily. And I would argue that that is a direct statement against your capacity to be that person. And I don't think that's an offensive thing to say. I think it's a realistic thing to say. You're going to need to resign if you think what's happening in the Middle East is going to bring the second coming. No, it's going to bring death, disease, and famine. If for your religion to operate, we might be doing the Strait of Hormuz in the next segment because Cynthia's got me going now. If your religion requires a school to be blown up, where 160 young girls between the age of 7 and 12 need to be blown up, you're doing religion wrong. If you believe that the people of Israel and all of the people in the Middle East need to come close to being wiped off the face of the earth in order for your Savior to return, you are doing religion wrong. No, I do not know. I do not have the answers. I do not walk on water. I don't have any of that information. But I know the second your religion starts telling me that violence needs to happen in order for your religion to happen, and I need to respect that, you are barking up the wrong tree. You're a crazy person. You're allowed to be crazy in your own house. You are not allowed to be crazy and running a military base. And you most certainly are not allowed to be crazy and have control over nuclear weapons. This cannot be the way that we are talking about the war in the Middle East. It will receive not an ounce of respect from me. And so when Donald Trump's faith office secretary is on video doing this, I have a couple of concerns.
Strike and 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 strike until you have victory. For every enemy that is aligned against you, let there be that we would strike the ground, for you will give us victory, God. I hear a sound of abundance of...
Yeah, I really don't want that anywhere near the people that have control of the nukes. And I don't think that that's a bold declarative statement to be making right now. This woman has once said that to say no to President Trump is to say no to God. They're saying that he has been ordained by God. There will be no wiggle room for that standpoint on Outside the Box. And I have a feeling some people are going to be offended by that. Allow me to say with a full throat, I don't care. I don't care. There comes a time when common sense has to take back over. And I'm old enough to remember, I might have been 12 or 13, but I'm old enough to remember when Islam was vilified because it required violence to be enacted against the infidels in order for bliss to be achieved. The appropriate attitude to take. I'm old enough to remember when the religious zealots were portrayed to us as being of Islamic faith, and we all bought into that. And now we're realizing that Mike Huckabee, Donald Trump's ambassador to Israel, believes that this is the way that things should work. Now, I recognize that this is more of a boomer sentiment than a lot of people my age and even Gen X. This is much more of an older sentiment, but at the same time, there is no room for it. And if you hear somebody defending Donald Trump, I should say defending Donald Trump in the name of his ordainment from God, that's my cue to no longer engage you anymore politically. There were quite a few people doing that on my Twitter page yesterday because I had the audacity to defend a girl who was fired for condemning a Nazi salute, talking about Trump's ordainment. And I'm willing to keep the channels of dialogue open with just about anybody, assuming that you don't act like a petulant child in the text line. And that's where I draw the line. That's where the line is drawn. And the idea that there are not one, not two, but 30 different people in charge of military bases that believe this, that talk this way, that are being reported by over 200 whistleblowers in the armed forces, that this is the crock of crap that they are being fed in order to justify another war that over 70% of America either doesn't want or doesn't know if they want it or not, which, sit at the children's table and just let the adults do the talking if you don't understand what you're looking at this point. I realize some of my audience might not have been alive or may have been 4 when 9/11 happened. So I realize that this doesn't resonate with you the same way it does for everyone that was alive. As I often highlight, I was looking at it through a child's eyes. I was 13 when it happened, 10 days away from turning 14. And when you are younger, you're not as informed, but you're also not as propagandized. And you have a way of looking at stuff that the adults in the room, in quotes, might not necessarily have a capacity to look at things through. And now that I'm watching everything play out the exact same way again, and watching the Trump administration just flat out say, oh, no, we never said that. And then some people go along with it. Get out of here. Get out of here with that nonsense. Ben, I see you saying it's going to be a nice day out. I'm not for wars, period. Iranians seem to be happy. I'm not, or their opinions should matter. Violence is all over the Bible. I'm going to ignore the Bible part, but I'm going to say this, Ben. If another country came to America and took out Donald Trump, there would be people excited that Donald Trump was assassinated. Does that mean if there were videos of tens of thousands of people dancing in the street that Donald Trump were taken out, that it was a necessary action to take and that maybe it should be applauded as what took place? Because for every protest you show me of people celebrating this individual's death, I will show you a protest 10 times that size saying America doesn't have any business in other people's affairs. It's the same thing that took place in Venezuela. I'm not saying these leaders are good people. Neither's Donald Trump. Guess what? Ayatollah Khomeini, between January 25 and the day he died, bombed 0 countries. Donald Trump bombed 7 countries in that same time period. Which one of them is more of a terrorist? Like, there's no amount of rhetoric that you can use to spin what's happening here against an actual anti-war leftist. That's the only way that I look at this. Mary says, I absolutely don't think Donald Trump's a divine being. My God/Jesus is about love, peace, and helping my brother. I mean, that's what religion's supposed to be. It's not the way that it works. Ben's saying he's just playing devil's advocate. I'm telling you, man, no room for that on this show. We have to go to break. We will do that geography lesson, I promise, on the other side, how we're going to be impacted economically. But Cynthia got me going, as she always does. We'll be back on the other side of that break. Outside the Box, WHBY, and Political Voices Network. All right, and we're back. Ben Cominos, Outside the Box, WHBY, Political Voices Network. Outside the Box is brought to you by Roush Plumbing and Remodeling, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. If you're just joining us, I took the first part of the show to engage in a little bit of schadenfreude and dunk on a fellow political talk show host that maybe has taken a swing or two, or me, that finds himself currently on sabbatical, we'll call it, until they figure out what they're going to do for having threatened a governor in Minnesota. And then we quickly switched gears into the continuing escalation of what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Ecuador now, and a little bit about what's going on in the world of religion and how that ties into the conversation about war in the Middle East, specifically focusing on Christian Zionism and the alarming number of people, especially in politics and in positions of power, that believe that a conflict in the Middle East will ultimately result in a rapture or a second coming of your Savior. No, there's not going to be any wiggle room for that on this show. I always wonder, like, when the people in management at this station hear, like, just like my tease of what a show's going to be, there's like, oh no, like, please don't get us a bunch of calls. But again, I'm not knocking any specific religion, and I highlighted how Islam, although we learned a little bit about Islam as well in that last segment, I highlighted how violence is talked about in that regard, and it also is, and it should be derided there, as well as how it should be derided in any kind of form of Christianity, calling for mass violence for an entire region of people. That should not be taken seriously, and it most certainly doesn't have any room in politics. Cindy called before the last break. I told her just call me back. I don't know what she wants to talk about, but she wanted to get some thoughts in before we switch gears into the geography of this war and the economics, which is trivial compared to the loss of life, but important nevertheless. But let's get Cindy's thoughts in here first. Hello, what's going on, Cindy?
Well, yesterday I talked about drafting Barron Trump, and you said I was being tongue-in-cheek, and actually I was not. But I just want you to know I am not in this thinking alone. I learned about a website yesterday, which is called draftbarrontrump.com.
Oh, no. Let me tell you right now, if you're telling me that you want to, like, if you want to see legislation come across that if Congress wants to enact a draft, then someone in their immediate family needs to be somebody that steps up, I'm all there for it. I was saying it more from I don't believe a draft is going to be enacted, because I think you will see untold records of people there will be record numbers of bone spurs in America if they try and force people to go. I'm telling you right now, a 23-year-old Ben would take jail before I'd go die in a Middle East war. And I think there's a lot of people wired like I am. But you're absolutely right. Were this administration to try and pull some of that garbage, not only should Barron be drafted, he should be front lines. That 6'10" frame should be shielding 5 minority soldiers behind him. I think is the best solution to that. There, I can agree with that for sure.
Yep, I agree with you. So have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Again, I'm not saying Cindy is either. I'm not trying to fearmonger here. I don't think it will be enacted. I'm telling you right now, so few people will go and fight that war because nobody actually believes this is in the name of anything other than a greater Israel region and probably something about oil profits, right? Like that's about the extent of it, and of course, access to 10% of the world's lithium, throwing China off. More on that in a second. By the way, Larry says the World Trade Center was taken out because of our involvement in the Middle East. Osama bin Laden said as much in the letter that he wrote after it happened. KG in Houston said, if your God ordained Trump to bomb the Middle East, your God is a monster, in all caps, something that I would have to agree with. I got a number here from Phil regarding the ordaining of the Orange Man. We'll see how holy he is when he has to explain to God why he was selling his own Trump Bibles. Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Yeah, no, I appreciate all the comments there for sure. But now let's get into it here. And for those of you watching on the video stream, like this is old school. For you guys that don't know me, I do a lot of stuff handwritten. I'm trying to do a little more digital. When you see me not looking at the camera, I do have a computer screen in front of me with a lot of type notes. But before I was recording, this is what a lot of my notes looked like when I would do this show. And we're going to now jump into this. There's the Strait of Hormuz. And I'm from Pittsburgh, so you're going to have to just deal with my pronunciation of words. That's just, I don't make the rules, you know. I got crap at the bar yesterday because of the way I say irony. Apparently, I should be saying it irony. But I was going, yeah, isn't the irony rich? It's like, okay, all right, I don't need this right now. But so the Strait of Hormuz is a very tiny strait, 33 kilometers in width, and it borders Iran as well as the UAE and a much smaller country called Oman. 17 million barrels a day travel through that strait, and it comes from a number of different countries, and it goes all over the place. And a number of countries are going to be impacted by this. Now, allow me to say before I jump into anything else here, I think I don't need to explain to you guys because we dealt with this 4 bleeping years ago. The cost of oil directly matters, but it also is going to be used as an excuse by companies when they decide to jack our prices up and say, well, what do you expect us to do? Do you see how much it costs to transport things? Excuse me. And there will be expanded costs as a result of these increases. Something went down the wrong pipe here. Oh, man, they must be coming after me right now. All right. We should expect prices to go up as a result of this. However, as I kind of teased in the 9 o'clock hour, prices going up is one thing. Profits going up is another thing entirely, and we need to talk about them as such. So let's look at a country-by-country basis how this is going to impact people. You have India. They import 80% of their oil in general. 60% of that 80% of their imported oil comes from the Strait of Hormuz. Then China. Now, as you guys know, we have the BRICS economy trying to compete with America, that being Brazil, India, China. It's no coincidence that you're seeing some of these countries pop up here and who's being negatively impacted by these decisions. Again, can't stress enough, we could just do diplomacy, stop exploiting other nations, and none of this would be popular. We are deciding, and when I say we, I mean the Orange Man along with Israel. And yes, if you voted for the Orange Man, you voted for this, have decided it would be better to be the biggest bullies on the block and see what we can do. China's number 2. They import 10 million barrels a day. 40% of those barrels, otherwise known as 4 million of those barrels, come from the Strait of Hormuz. You have Japan importing 90% of their oil. 75% of that comes from the Strait of Hormuz. You got Saudi Arabia, who has 80% of exports that go through the Strait of Hormuz. So now This could lead to two things, because use your own mind, use your own imagination. What would a country do if they took an 80% hit in their economy? Well, they would probably take matters into their own hands, would they not? Maybe they start sending soldiers over to try and open up the Strait of Hormuz. Maybe they attack Iran. Looks like an expanding conflict, something MAGA was pretty certain they were scared of under Joe Biden. I'm sure they feel the exact same way now. They couldn't be hypocrites just parroting that of their orange dad president, could they? So Saudi Arabia is taking an 80% hint in what their economy is doing, and as a result may end up turning to violence in a way to try and open that straight back up. You have Pakistan, who gets 90%, 9 out of 10 gallons coming through the Strait of Hormuz. Then you have Europe, who is taking a 10% hit. Do they go to Russia? I don't know. Probably. Are they an enemy? Waka Waka? I don't remember anymore. So right now, as it stands, I shouldn't say right now because we're already seeing the prices go up, but I looked it up on what was the freaking oilprice.com. On January 1, 2026, the cost of a barrel of gas was between $60 and $65 per barrel. Oilprice.com is speculating that as a result of Donald Trump's war of choice, finally found something Republicans are pro-choice on, which I guess we can take that as an absolute win. They are expecting the cost of a barrel to shoot up to between $100 and $150 per barrel. Up from 60 to 65, even assuming the low number, going up to $100 a barrel. That's a pretty significant increase in the price of what we're going to be dealing with here. I think we need to have a real talk about how this is going to impact inflation and a cost of living crisis that has already been brought about by corporate greed. I think it's very important to highlight that there is already wiggle room provided in the profits that every major company is making right now. That is not up for debate. That is not the deranged ramblings of one progressive talk show host. That is based in empirical, observable facts. And I have done a pretty good job over the course of 3.5 years, laying out earnings call after earnings call and profit report after profit report, exploiting just how much we are getting gouged on a company-by-company basis. Moreover, I have highlighted back in 2022, during my first show, that the End Corporate Greed Now Act was showing people in 2022 exactly how high the profits were in 2021 and how much we were being exploited by a lack of competition in a proposal that was brought up in front of the Senate that did not get a vote when the Democrats controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency, surrounding taxing those people a little bit more to get the money back in the pockets of Americans. We talked yesterday about a very similar bill, a wealth tax exclusively on the wealthiest 980 people in this country, the billionaires, a 5% wealth tax that would raise $4.4 trillion over the course of the next 10 years. That would probably be a pretty good thing to pass in the upcoming moments here, as we are expecting the cost of everything to shoot through the roof, oftentimes in an artificial manner. But you are seeing, whether it's India, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, or all of our allies in Europe, we are talking 60, 70, 80, 90% increases or decreases rather in their supply of oil. Do they pay more to get it from other areas? Do they make cuts in their own economy? We are bringing everything down with us. Thank God the president's not a black woman, or else, I don't know, this same thing would be happening. Waka waka. This is what drives me nuts, is that the same Republicans who are willing to condemn the Obama-Iranian deal are now completely okay with this, and I'm supposed to pretend like they are level-headed and I have respect for their opinion. I don't. I really hope everybody listening understands, if you were condemning the Iran nuclear deal under Obama and are cool with this, you are a partisan hack that does not deserve to have your opinion respected. So I think that's a pretty important thing for you to hear from me. What does it say here? Ben, I was born in Wisconsin and have lived here all of my 66 years. This matters to no one, but I want to know that everyone in my family says irony the way that you say it. Good. That makes me feel all right. Paul says LNG prices for Europe and Asia shot up almost 70% because Qatar stopped producing due to the war. Europe is trying to remove Russia's supply with U.S. supply. U.S. companies will see a large profit increase here. Absolutely. And I mean, that's part of the end goal, right? I mean, we got to make sure that these billion-dollar companies that are destroying our environment and wrecking everything we hold dear find a way to milk this planet for even more than they already are, while the people that claimed to care about World War III or trying to avoid war all start clapping like the trained seals that they are, because their dad president is telling them good things are happening. And I guess maybe Jesus will come back if they pull this off successfully, is what some of the people believe. It's a very dangerous time to be doing this kind of stuff here. And with a War Powers Act proposed to rein in this madman that we are seeing stagnate in the House and Senate right now, as Democrats are concerned, because they know a pretty decent percentage of them are going to vote in favor of what this madman is doing. There comes a time when it kind of highlights what's going on in the primary season. You are watching warmongers get beaten. You're watching APAC recipients get beaten. And you're watching people like Zoran not only win, but have the highest approval rating amongst Democrats, because he actually gets crap done. This is what happens. See, Democrats get a supermajority and they do 4% of what their platform was, and then say, if you give us another majority, maybe we'll give you another 4%. Then Republicans get a majority and they say, quick, cut the taxes for the rich. Do nothing else. Keep cutting taxes for billionaires and do nothing else. And their supporters say, well, it's better than communism. And around in circles we go. We are reaching a point now where people are sick and tired of tax cuts for the rich. The smallest percentage of MAGA/Republican voters are actually buying into trickle-down economics for the first time right now. And you're watching progressive politicians not only win, but perform. It's almost like up in New York, because I follow the stories every day because I want to see how things are trending over there. And it seriously is like every day I will read a local New York paper and it'll be like, Zoran Mamdani ran on turning off the baby crunching machine, and we don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off. And then like later that day, he's like, hey guys, the baby crunching machine got turned off today. And everyone's like, what? How'd you do it that fast? He's like, yeah, it turns out there was just a lever. If you flip it the other way, it's no longer the baby crunching machine. Now it's the universal child care machine, and everybody now has access to affordable child care, and we're not crunching babies anymore. Meanwhile, Democrats are like, you don't understand what it takes. This is what people are waiting for. Mark my words. Mark my words. A progressive's going to come out of the Democratic governor's race, and the Republicans are going to try and paint that person as an extremist. Meanwhile, they're advocating for a mass virgin army to murder Americans in the street, but that's neither here nor there. I'll allow you guys to determine which one of those two things is more extremist, either taxing billionaires more or masked Gestapo armies shooting mothers in the face. 920-281-1150. In general, Tom Tiffany isn't popular. I've already highlighted that with the Marquette polling from last week, where he has like a vote of 35%. 66% are undecided, and there's nobody else in the race right now. Trust me, as somebody that warned Democrats for 2 years that they were going to get their brains beaten in if they didn't fix the economy, and then there was an uncommitted movement where there was nobody else on the ballot or no one of consequence, and Joe Biden was still losing votes to nobody. I was like, guys, this is probably a pretty big warning sign. Wisconsin should be waking up to the same thing. The MAGA flank is trying to spin it as some kind of other kind of nonsense. All you got to do is use as I say to you guys, as I say to my friends at the station here, I don't have sources. I just have basic deductive reasoning. Like, did you see Jasmine Crockett blame Republicans for her loss yesterday? Meanwhile, let me highlight, Jasmine Crockett never actually highlighted a platform. She ran on Isn't Trump Bad in making sure that she boasted about how she put every package forward to Israel that was available to vote on. And then she says, I lost because Republicans made it harder to vote in black districts. Out of curiosity, in what world did whichever Republican candidate comes out of that Texas primary not want to run against Jasmine Crockett? In what world was James Tellerico the preferred candidate to be running against? Republicans are so scared of that guy that they made the FCC stop Stephen Colbert from running the interview, ultimately resulting in a ton more eyes ending up on that interview. What's funny is Crockett was actually pulling ahead of Tellerico until GOP tried to pull that garbage, and then he ended up taking the lead and running away with it from there. It's funny to me to watch these people try and explain in a way when reality is she didn't have a platform and she's very pro-military industrial complex. Janet Mills up in Maine doesn't have a platform, very pro-military industrial complex. Her opponent, Graham Plattner, had a Totenkopf on him. I believe he didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo. He's beating her by 30 points in polling right now. There is a movement taking place, and the right claims they want this. The right claims they want people like these candidates coming out of here, people that are going to invest tax dollars in the American population. Yes, these people will be nice to Mexicans. That's going to be a concession that you have to make, but they're going to stop dollars from going overseas. They're going to invest in the communities that they are elected to represent. We're going to have that decision to make here in Wisconsin at the end of the year. Do you actually mean what you say, or is it just about getting damn Mexicans and literally nothing else? Because the fact that you're willing to change your tune so quickly about Iran, the fact that you're so quickly ready to change your tune about freaking guns rights at protests, the fact that you're willing to change your tune about the cost of living shows that you don't believe a lot of the stuff that you claim to say. So tell me, do you want a government that invests in America first? And if yes, MAGA ain't it. They've proven that for 15 months straight. Not my opinion, an objective empirical fact. Larry says the U.S. is the largest producer of all petroleum products. Why is our price going up? Isn't that a brilliant question, Larry? I'm sure it has something to do with inflation numbers that you and I are far too dumb to understand, but Democrats will be able to handle it, I'm sure. All right. And with that, we're going to put a pin in this conversation. That's all I have to say about Iran today. Oh, one more thing. Wait, I want to make sure I have the number right. Where'd it go? Bear with me here. If you guys haven't been following along, because if you don't remember, there was a president that we have that was mentioned 38,000 times just in the unredacted files for the Epstein list. 38,000 mentions of Donald Trump's name in the Epstein files, and his DOJ has eliminated more than 60,000 files while we are all distracted with this guy starting World War III for no reason. So I guess we'll add child exploitation to that list of things that Republicans don't care about as long as the orange man's doing it. There will come a time when you guys will have a reckoning. And unfortunately, I said it when Trump won, trying to find a silver lining, and it's kind of bearing the fruit that I talked about. It's much like that Clint dude or whatever his name was out in West Virginia. When we met, Trump 1.0 was happening. And he would call me and he would say, can you believe 60% of people can't afford a spare set of tires? It's because Trump's economy sucks while he's cutting taxes for rich. I'm like, no, totally. I hear you. That's objectively 100% true. Then you flash forward to Joe Biden being in office and he said, no, the economy's fixed. People are struggling to get by because they don't want to work hard anymore. Boomer stuff, like out of touch boomer stuff. You're now MAGA. You're going to watch the inverse of that happen. A number of you get mad at me because I'm holding you to the Clint from West Virginia standard. The stuff that you claimed to be mad about, I actually was mad about. It wasn't something that I was doing because I wanted to do red team, blue team. It was ways the Democratic Party sucked, that the Republican Party is establishing they suck even worse at it. You will not have a leg to stand on. As I started the show off with, I was described as a millennial with a long memory and a short fuse. I will remember who is okay with this and when Democrats are in office again. And trust me, it won't take long. I don't know if you've seen the polling data. I will remember who was okay with this version of events and when there's a watered down version of the military industrial complex happening under Democrats. I will be saying, now let's actually go to the left and eliminate it. And there will be no more room for actually, what if the J.D. Vance? Nope. J.D. Vance has shown his colors. We know what he is. Ain't nobody got time for that. We're going to break. Jump into a different conversation on the other side. Anyone wants to chime in, 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150, and we'll be back on the other side. You're listening to Outside the Box here on WHBY and Political Voices Network. You know, the people that know me know that there's nothing in this world that makes me more mad than welfare queens. You know that? Why can't people pick themselves up by their bootstraps and do what's necessary to make a living on their own? You know what I mean? I'm sick and tired of my tax dollars propping up these people that don't want to work anymore. People know this about me. It's one of my defining features. The Trump administration kicked off a lot of hardworking Americans off of their health care, off of food stamps. Those aren't the welfare queens I'm talking about. Those are the people exploited by a system designed to pay them not enough money in order to exist. The welfare queens I'm talking about are the ones at the Pentagon, the Raytheons, the Lockheed Martins. They're prepared. They received an increase in their funding up to $1 trillion this last year, and they're expecting to see that go up to $1.5 trillion, all in the name of blowing up children, which is apparently what those companies are all about, the welfare companies that drive me nuts. They're prepared to ask for a $50 billion complimentary package because Donald Trump blew through 5 years worth of missiles in 3 days because he's a big brain Republican. And they're asking for another $50 billion on top of that, a $1 trillion, soon to be $1.5 trillion that they've decided they've needed to blow up schoolgirls. Now, when are we going to tell these welfare queens to get up and do their damn job? Am I right? 920-281-1150. When are we going to tell these welfare queen defense contractors that it's time to pay your way? No more stock buybacks, no more CEO bonuses. You're going to pay your way. MAGA, where are you at, guys? Let's get those welfare queens, shall we? Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Morning, Ben. Can I be a little more serious for a minute?
Yeah, sure. I'm serious too, but go on.
Okay. I'm concerned the Paralympics start Friday. Is Kash Patel, I haven't heard, has he made his way over to Italy again to protect our athletes and the maybe Israeli athletes, or they got a plan to protect the athletes? I mean, there was an attack, I believe, in 72 Olympics against the Israelis.
Sure. Oh, yeah, and I've seen there's some Middle Eastern countries that are considering not participating in the World Cup because of this, right? I mean, the airspace conversation alone is enough to worry people about it. But, yeah, no, I haven't read anything about it.
No, I haven't either. And F1 and other European auto sports have already had to cancel their stuff because they have races in Saudi Arabia and UAE and such. They've already been affected. They've canceled stuff for like the most recent month coming up.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's not the only time either, and I appreciate the call. Definitely something to be cognizant of if we watch that kind of stuff develop, but I haven't seen anything about it, at least as of the recording of this episode. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Hi, this is Dale.
Hey, Dale.
Hey, good morning. I just, seems like I'm always going against the flow here, but you know, Hegseth was on this morning. They're talking about this being a short-term deal, get in, get out, not a long-time war. I think what's going to happen, gas prices have shot up 5 days. We're talking 5 days. They were down quite a bit from a year ago, and I think they're going to come back down, and I think this $18 trillion of new investment in the United States and factories and companies building plants here like Honda and Kia, and even Ford bringing companies back, or F-150 back from Canada and stuff like that. That's going to pan out, and I think the economy is going to be really good. And as far as the tariffs go, that thing, Trump was ahead of the ball game on that too. We didn't get those. He was using those as a negotiating tool. He's a businessman. I think he did really well on that. That's
So
just my
you're
opinion. I think things are
expecting
gonna
an
be good
anti-war
soon.
leftist to think that a right-wing regime is going to get us into a short war in the Middle East? Can I tell you about the war on terror? Because I remember Dick Cheney promising us something very similar 20 years ago, and it was in fact not a particularly short war.
Yeah,
It was
he was
actually
wrong.
very
I
long
think they
and
were
cost
wrong,
us
and
several $trillion, and now we're paying for that $1 trillion by cutting food stamps. So I have a bad feeling about this war because it seems like, depending on the day you ask the president, it's about nukes that he claimed he already blew up, or it's about regime change, except he's against regime change, or it's about freeing the people of Iran, except for he doesn't know if the people that replace him are going to be better or worse than the Ayatollah that was there. It seems to me that unless you are promptly in the seat of the Republican Party and just follow along with what they say, anybody looking at this objectively would see a confused administration with no game plan on how to do anything.
well, that's a negative look at the whole thing.
It's an objective look.
That's,
It's an objective look. Like, I'm not making anything up that I said. All those things are things that
No,
he
I
has
know.
done and said. So it's an objective look at things, right? I could put on rosy sunglasses and say that the war in Ukraine was going to be over if Democrats just had 2 more months. You and I both know that's not accurate. I don't think this
No,
war is
both
going
sides make
anywhere.
mistakes, but they've said the Trump administration is saying that they learned their lesson on prior wars, and
If Kamala Harris told you she learned her lesson, would you believe it?
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of a centrist. I'm
You don't seem
conservative.
very
I own a business.
centrist. You don't seem very centrist. I'll be honest.
Well, not compared to not compared to some things that if this thing's over and things get going in the right direction, which I think they are, interest rates down, inflation down, that sort of thing. I think we're going to be all right. But they just want to get rid of the chance of Iran getting nuclear weapons. They keep saying it over and over. Isn't that what this is about?
I thought we obliterated their nuclear weapons 9 months ago.
Well, evidently they were building back under mountains.
It's those magical beads. I'll tell you, Dale, I appreciate what you call. Be careful. They haven't legalized weed in this state yet, all right?
I don't do it. I never did.
All right. Thanks for the call, bud. Yeah, he also is the guy that insists that the housing market is stronger than it's ever been right now. I think Donald Trump might not make a mistake for 4 years when he calls. We got another caller coming in. I'm going to need it to calm down. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Hey, calming down is a great idea. Just before I walked into the doctor's office to get my blood pressure taken, you were naming off all the places we bombed, and I blew a 171 over 120, and I explained to him that I was listening to the local political station, and they informed me that I should stop soon. But
oh yeah,
I'm calming down. And then I just wanted to say, I appreciate Dale's optimism.
Oh, sure.
Everybody wants to be optimistic that what we're hearing is what's going to happen. I would love it. I would certainly love it. But we've been walked down this road by both sides too many times. And, you were touching on a little bit about the price of oil. We produce enough crude and LNG in this country that we could probably take care of ourselves, but the ability to sell it overseas is going to create shortages here. So if the government stepped up and said, hey, listen, we got to keep our crude and LNG in town, in our country, that would cap the prices on oil. And if we put a wartime act on corporations for not gouging us, that would do two things. So if those two things happen, I will give the Trump administration a little bit of leeway, but right now the rosy glasses, I don't see it. But anyway, I appreciate everybody's opinion.
Yeah.
I appreciate Dale, but I got to see it before it happens. So
yeah,
anyway,
I'm not
take a
buying it
breath.
either. I have a very important question for you though before I let you go there, Brian. Did you tell your doctor to download the WHBY app while you were there?
I did not. She told me to turn you off, and I said I can't. I got to keep up on what's going on.
I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you for calling in, Brian. You take it easy. You guys love doing this thing where you all call in when I have like 7 minutes. We're gonna have to go quickly here. Hello, you're on Outside the Box. Hello. Oh wait, sorry, I have you potted down. That's on me. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Okay, sorry, Ben.
That was on me. I apologize.
That's okay. Okay. The first thing you mentioned, the West Virginia caller from way back when, because I've listened to you for a while. My name's Gary out of Oshkosh.
Right on.
Was Craig. That was his name.
I know.
Anyway,
I jerk him around because he still
right.
listens, and I like to say the wrong name. So
right. Okay. But no, I was gonna ask you, because I had heard about the negotiations that essentially are failing because the Iranians aren't wanting to come up to the plate or what have you.
Sure.
But I heard about 24,000 pounds of enrichment material that they have that they basically stockpiled. Do you know anything about that?
I've heard bits and pieces of it. Here's what I do know, and I'm sorry. Would you say your first name was?
Gary.
Gary, here's what I do know from my perspective of things here. I know you listen. You don't watch it. I'm sure you don't follow me on socials or anything like that. There is a cartoon from 28.
I'm blind.
Oh, okay. Well, that settles that right there.
I'm blind. So well, I listen to you.
Yeah, right on. I appreciate that. There's a cartoon from 2018 during the first Trump administration that I shared with the audience last week that shows a cartoon version of Uncle Sam. It's a political cartoon, not a real one. Stomping Libya into oblivion. And then in the same frame, it shows a giant Uncle Sam ready to stomp North Korea into oblivion, but he shows a cognizance that North Korea has a nuke. They have larger missiles, and that it has to result in diplomacy. The framework from which I do this show is I understand why other countries want nukes, because the second you get a nuke, we have to be diplomatic with you instead of bombing you into oblivion. And so, based on the claims that I've seen, Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying that Iran is about to get a nuke since 1993. It's just a thing that he says so that we'll continue bombing the Middle East. Whether or not there are claims about enriched uranium, and more importantly, whether they're backed up in fact or not, I am not in a position to say. But what I can say is the WMDs were the lie in the early 2000s. Benjamin Netanyahu has been warning us about WMDs since the early 90s. And we were told, even if you buy into this rhetoric, that had all been obliterated. That was the president and the Secretary of War's words, not mine, 9 months ago. So are we going to have to do this every 9 months? Is that the claim of this presidency? Is that how quickly this is going to come back? Because that's not a world that I would particularly want to be a part of.
Right. No, I got it. Okay.
That's where I'm coming from.
No, same here. Same here. I have to agree. Same here. So,
right on.
Well, good show, Ben. And
I love that you called.
Yeah,
please do. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's awesome. And thank you, Jolie. I love that you're listening. Yeah, and Rod says, holy bleep, that weed comment to Dale was freaking hilarious. I didn't know how else to react. You guys forget sometimes that I'm live. Look, I have to squeeze one more break in here. We'll put a bow on this show on the other side. We'll be back. Outside the Box, Ben Cominos, WHBY, Political Voices Network. For the record, I want this to be a short war. I have no reason to believe that it's going to be as we continue escalating. Already, the civilian death total is far too high for my conscience for what's taking place overseas. Clearly, I'm not going to get to do my my whole defense budget thing. It's fine. I can do it tomorrow. The civilian death total, for people that listened to me during the Biden years, as I've stated earlier in the week, if you thought that this show was aggressive against the Democratic establishment while they were arming and funding a genocide, but not actually doing any of the genociding, just facilitating the measures in which a genocide could be perpetuated, how do you think I'm going to behave when the genocide is being enacted by the American, or not the genocide, but the death of foreign casualties, of civilian deaths? As we are responsible for those, what do you think this show is going to sound like? What do you think the theming of this show is going to be about? It's not one-sided. The problem with war is not one-sided. And I don't know if the last caller, Dale, was listening in the first hour, but Brian mentioned it. I started this program off reading every country that we have bombed, both under Bush, Obama, Trump, both Trumps, and Biden. And I highlighted that Somalia was bombed by 4 different presidents. Afghanistan was bombed by 4 different presidents. Pakistan was bombed by 3 different presidents. The list goes on and on. It's not up for debate that this is a bipartisan issue. But if you expect to be able to run on being the anti-war president and then banking on the cult that supports you, pretending that what's happening is actually what they voted for, that's fine. The cult is going to support it. I am not in a cult. I expect those things to change. I expect them not to happen. I expect them to stop happening. People saying this is the way it's always worked, that answer is not acceptable to me. We are supposed to grow as humanity grows, as more information is made available to us, as we learn what other countries are doing. Someone in my text line, I don't remember who it was, said, Iran's been engaging of words of violence against America forever. They've been saying death to America. Yeah, because we make their lives a living hell. I get if it were 1984, you might not have access to the information that highlights that. It's bleeping 2026. Time to read a book, It's time to grow up and understand why there's countries that hate us. Ask ourselves, how would America react if we got surrounded by 36 military bases from a foreign adversary? How would we react if we found the Marcellus Shale and people just came over, bombed the governor's house in Pennsylvania, and took all our oil? We know how we'd react, and it's time to grow up from that. I'm not trying to convince you that Biden or Obama offered something better. But Trump ran on something better, and he's a bleeping liar. And the people that try and defend it on this show will be talked to the way I talked to the last caller until he decides to change. Till then, I'll hold my breath. We got to get out of here. Download the show on YouTube at 1 p.m. Check me out on the WHBY app or anywhere you get your podcasts. You guys know the drill at this point. Show goes up shortly after I wrap up here, and we'll be back to do it all again tomorrow. Haley's up next. This is Outside the Box with Ben Cominos here on WHBY and Political Voices Network.
Thank you.